Hi, I'm Jody.
And I'm Allison.
And you're listening to The Blume Saloon.
It's a Judy Blume book club. And we're wrapping up Norma Klein, Domestic Arrangements.
This is an odds and ends episode for serious Bloomheads only, but also non-serious Bloomheads. I mean,
we're going to have fun.
Yeah. We have some letters for you. We've got some doodads, some bebops, some...
skits and scoots and scoodle-deets.
Exactly. Some fun facts, some trivia, some knowledge.
But first, I want to hear, it's been a few weeks since we wrapped up Domestic Arrangements. Fine novel about Rusty and all her trials and tribulations. Have you had any thoughts, like any deep thoughts about the book and our time with it since?
I tried to put it out of my mind for a little while. But I had the thought the other day that maybe we didn't give Norma enough credit. I feel like her style of writing lays the groundwork for us to see through Rusty's idiocy, and she gives the reader the benefit of the doubt. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. She really, really, really captured the naivete of a 14-year-old.
Yeah, and she gave us enough information to know better.
Yes.
Like the whole scene where Rusty goes on her Low, the musical auditions, we see it through Rusty's eyes, but she's a totally unreliable narrator, and we're given the cues to know that, she's in deep water here, even though she doesn't directly tell us that. And I think that's really smart.
Rusty, kind of talks a big game about being this very, independent woman where she makes her decisions and she knows what she wants and she's, working on it, and you, kind of see her through all these decisions, but you actually realize, she's just super emotional and impulsive and thinking with, whatever kind of feelings happen in the moment, and I'm never doing this again. And then the next day she's like, I did that.
Yeah. You can sum up the book with exactly what you just said. Never doing it again. Did it.
Yeah. She thinks she's on her way to a movie meeting, and it's no, let's stay in bed and snuggle naked.
So I think our judgments of Rusty do not reflect our judgments of Norma.
No. As traumatized as I was reading the book, it was really fun. It was a really good read, and I really, I said it at some point while we were reading it, and I'll say it again, if I had read this when I was a teenager, it would have been super important to me. Yeah.
I've heard a couple of people say this, that when they did read it when they were younger, they loved it because Rusty was what they thought teenagers were like. If you read this when you were 12, maybe 13, and Rusty's a little bit older, you're like, ooh, this is what being a teen is like.
Interesting you say that, because we'll talk about it a bit later in the episode. But Lolita, the movie with Dominique Swain, directed by Adrian Lyne, came out in 1997 when I was 11.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was in tune enough to know about celebrities and watched a little too much TV. And I remember the movie coming out and thinking, that's what a teenage girl is like. Wow. And I didn't see the movie, but I saw the trailer.
Right.
And I saw them talk about it a lot on TV and saw the magazines.
The iconic romper and her hair and the braids.
And I was just kind of she's a pretty teenager.
Right.
She's so cool. And teenagers, when I'm a teenager, I'll be sexy.
Right.
And it's no, you're a teenager and you're the same person. All right. We got a letter from Laura Ingalls. Subject line, Record Store Guys! The message, hello, ladies. I wanted to chime in about Record Store Guys. You had your Tower and Virgin guys. I had my HMV boy. I grew up about an hour outside of Toronto, and about once a month I would take a train to Toronto to stock up on good music you couldn't get in my suburban town. Early to mid-90s, I was obsessed with Britpop and indie. Same, girl. Same. There was, maybe still is, a giant 3-story HMV on Yonge Street, and the dreamiest, older, dark-haired indie guy worked there. I would spend hours peering over shelves to get a good look at him and hope that my music choices would impress him. When I checked out at his register, he didn't give a shit. I talked about him so much that after my Toronto trip, my mom would ask, was the HMV boy working? I eventually moved to Toronto to go to university and ended up being in the same circle of friends as him. Wow. I found out that his name was Scott. And he started dating my friend's roommate. Weirdly, finding out his name and a bit more information about him took away the mystique of my mysterious HMB boy. It was more fun to have a very teenagery secret crush on him. I think we all have one of those crushes in our past, right? And they always worked at record stores. I am loving the Norma Klein episodes, and I'm shocked/thrilled at how bonkers domestic arrangements is. Laura.
Same.
What a fun letter.
That was amazing.
Took me back again. I'm just like, record store boys.
Yeah. That whole idea of admiring a boy from afar and then having him kind of infiltrate your circle, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah, you don't want them in real life.
That happened in college. There was this guy freshman year that I would see from afar. He was in a different dorm up the hill. Totally my style. He had the wallet chain. He had the socks that were kind of pulled up.
The wallet chain and high socks. I just had a record store boy
You have your hand to your heart right now. Your
conniption fit. I'm just like, oh no.
And I just always eyed him all year long. We didn't have any classes together. Didn't have any friends in common. But over the next couple years, we ended up having mutual friends, and we ended up being DJs at the same radio station. And by the time we were at our 5th year in college, we were roommates.
Oh my God.
Shout out Mike Hudzina. And it's so funny, knowing him as a good friend and a roommate, and hearing him fart, just listening to him snore in the room next door. It was so hard to remember my crush on him.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you have a friend that's a guy or a girl, and one of your friends is like, they're so hot. And you're kind of like, wait, what?
I'm like, no.
How? No.
This wine.
It's
not
so
as
good.
smooth as I thought. No, I was just thinking you want to tell them no, he smells,
No, they're real people.
Yeah. We have another letter, 2 letters actually, from Bloomhead Helen.
Helen!
She wrote, Dear Alison and Jody, I just finished listening to the latest episode of the Bloom Saloon podcast. Which podcast? Episode 66, Now Times, and just loved it. I couldn't believe the way domestic arrangements ended. Definitely not the ending I was expecting. The story about the ponytail haircut reminded me of my own bad haircut. I had went to a hair salon that wasn't the most upscale and asked for a layered look. The stylist proceeded to put my hair in a ponytail and had me lean over while sitting in the chair. She then snipped my hair in one fell swoop. I was utterly horrified.
I'd lose my freaking mind if this happened to me.
My hair looked like it was cut by a lawnmower.
Oh my God.
I had to put my hair up in a headband for the next 2 months. Oh. But this wasn't the first time I had a disastrous hair episode. One time when I was 16 years old, I decided to perm my very straight hair. The stylist that was working on my hair decided to experiment with triangle-shaped curlers.
I have no words.
I was mortified when I saw my hair. I looked like I had square curls.
Square curls?
I left the place crying and saying how I hated the way my hair looked. The things we do for our hair. I was so inspired by our Tales of a 4th Grade Nothing podcast that I wanted to buy more of the books from the series from eBay. I got all the Fudge books and Sheila the Great book and Blubber. The seller even included some cool star stickers with my order. They reminded me of the stars that teachers would stick on our tests or reports. Remember those?
Vividly.
Some of the used books even had an inscription written inside the pages that were previously owned by someone else.
Aww.
It's really neat to see what people write in the inscription. The Blubber book was given to a kid by their grandparents as a Christmas present. And then she sent us some photos of the books and their inscriptions. They are amazing. I will post some of these.
Yay!
She also wrote us a 5-star review on iTunes.
What?
Thank you so much, Helen.
Yay, Helen!
Then she wrote us another letter the next day. Dear Alison and Jody, I know I wrote you yesterday, but it just had to write you again after what I discovered. I was flipping through my Sheila the Great book, and I noticed the order form for the Judy Blume diary. How great would that be to have? It says, like your thoughts, the Judy Blume diary belongs to you. It's the place to put your own feelings, wherever and however you'd like. Then she goes into some more detail about the pricing on eBay. One is listed for $54.99.
My brain just went there, immediately as she was saying, oh, there was this Judy Blume diary. I was like, where can I get one of those?
Right? Would you spend $54.99?
I might. I might be a collector.
Well, she wrote, and then get this. Another eBay listing has it for sale brand new and sealed in its original packaging for $197.50, marked down from $395.
I get it.
And she sent us some photos of that too. So thank you so much, Helen.
Wow. Thank you.
Did you ever have a perm?
No. I was thinking about perms when I was thinking about those square curls.
Yeah.
I was never allowed to have a perm, and I always really wanted one. What about you?
I never did. I was never allowed to, but I'm glad I was never allowed to because my hair is so, like, it would have been like one of those clown wigs because my hair is so thick.
Mine would have just fallen out.
Really?
My hair's so straight. It would have just been like, nah.
I feel like those were the girls that got perms, though, the straight hair girls.
So I always wanted one, but I wanted like full-on crinkly, like perm.
Yeah.
But like maybe a body perm. As they were called back then.
Body wave.
Like some body waves.
Uh-huh.
That kind of perm would have been good. But my mom just always said, "Will ruin your hair."
Yeah, I mean, she's smart.
Well, my friend Tyler, she had beautiful long hair. And in first grade, she got a perm.
Mm-hmm. First grade?
I kid you not, first grade. She's also the friend, like, we've watched home videos of her at, like, her, like, third birthday party, and her dad's, like, pouring Mountain Dew into her cup. You know what I mean? Like,
is she on Toddlers and Tiaras?
Basically, she was like one of the child cheerleaders, all of that. And she had a perm in first grade, and her hair got so fried that in second grade, she had a little tiny bowl cut because she had to cut it all off.
Oh, a little tiny bowl, like, snipped away. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so...
Can you imagine a first grade? But I remember that. Like, I remember talking about perms at, like, slumber parties in high school and being like, I wish I could get a perm. And friends being like, I have one in kindergarten. It's not that big a deal.
It's insane. I mean, when we were in, like, 4th and 5th, they were all the rage. And I remember at, like, pool parties over the summer, there were...
Who couldn't get in.
Yeah, there was always, like, the cool girls that couldn't go in. Like, I just got a perm.
Or I can only stand in the shallow end.
Yeah. That was definitely, like, a badge of honor.
I wanted that.
All right, Allison, are you ready to have your mind blown even more?
What?
I discovered something about the poem Now Times.
Now Times. For now, people.
You did such an amazing job. I had that in my head literally for days after you recorded. It was just iconic.
My mom really called me out. She's like, you were doing your best, like, So I Married an Axe Murderer impression.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you caught me.
I mean, that's our frame of reference, right? We weren't around in the 40s.
Beat poetry?
Right?
Like, come on.
Classic. So I discovered who wrote Now Times.
Excuse me?
Do you want to take any guesses?
It's a real poem?
I mean, somebody wrote it in real life. That wasn't Norma.
Was it Judy?
No, but close. It was somebody close to Norma.
Her mom?
It was her daughter, Jennifer Fleissner.
And she just took it and put it in the book?
No, I mean, I'm sure it was like permission asked.
I hope so.
She gave credit, all rights reserved. Now Times for Now People with Now Dreams by Jennifer Fleissner. And then literally later that day, Blume had Karen of Karen Files, Karen, emailed me with the same information.
I love that she knew that already.
Of course she did. She was waiting for the right time.
That's too good.
Bloomhead Karen did tell us that apparently Norma used another poem from her daughter, Jennifer Fleissner, in another book.
What's Jennifer up to?
I think she might be a professor somewhere.
I hope she's doing well.
I hope so, too. You know, Bloomhead Karen encouraged us to reach out to Jennifer and maybe do an interview someday, which planted the seed.
I'm in.
We could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I also have another tidbit of information that Bloomhead's pointed out to us. This comes from Lisa and Rebecca. They tag-teamed this one. They pointed out that Norma Klein has an Easter egg in Fudgemania. So, do you remember the scene where Peter and Fudge, they go to the library and there's a librarian reading a sexy book? It's called Beginner's Love. And Peter's like, woo! Wouldn't you know, Beginner's Love is a Norma Klein book.
Oh my god!
Don't you love this?
This is such a treat.
Uh-huh. It really, it just makes me feel so warm and fuzzy inside to know that they were kind of holding hands.
We're going to come full circle again later in this episode.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Our movie night is coming.
Uh-huh. Special report?
Okay. I want to start by saying we love domestic arrangements. Obviously, we've gone on about that. But what it really sparked inside of us is a deep fascination with Lolita.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is such a crucial kind of point at the end of this book that we had to go down the rabbit hole of, like, Lolita. But I didn't know this whole time, for weeks and weeks, I've been listening to French pop star Alizée on Spotify, and her first hit came out in the year 2000, was Moi, Lolita. And so I've been listening to this song, Moi, Lolita, and I just like was like, oh, it's French. I don't know what she's saying. Not realizing she's saying Lolita.
Well, to be fair, you sent it to me and I took a listen, and she breaks up the word Lolita, so you don't think it's the same. You think it's like Lolita, you know?
Yeah, she says it a few times. It's like Lolita.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a great song. I really recommend taking a listen.
I'll put some in here.
It was the Baby One More Time of France. The video, have you watched it?
No.
Insane. So Alizée, she's 15. This song's about Lolita.
Yeah.
It's a total like Lolita video. She's like in the French countryside. She wants more. She goes dancing. She's young. She's beautiful. And you're just kind of like, wow, you look frighteningly young, but you are really beautiful. And you just see how she kind of struck that whole fascination again. Like, it's like a thing where it's just like, ooh, like, let's fetishize the young girl. Like, how do we do it? Lolita! Like, bring out the Lolita!
Is it just kind of her frolicking on her own?
Yeah, she's got, like, a younger sister, and she, like, runs away. There's, like, a dance club. There's, like, a whole story, but you're kind of just, most of the time, you're just like, oh, she's so young and pretty.
But it makes you wonder, like, who's behind the camera?
Yeah,
fucking
and
50-year-old men.
Totally, and it is a very much, you're like, oh, yeah, the Britney Spears and the schoolgirls and all of that. And so then it did bring up all these, like, memories and feelings about the 1997 Lolita movie, which let's talk about.
Let's talk about it. So both of us read this article that was written by Lacey Warner called The Lasting Effects of the Lolita Complex, because it touches upon not only Lolita and Dominique Swain, but also Sally Horner, who is the real life little girl who was kidnapped at age 12. She was the original Lolita. Nabokov took her story.
And she died 2 years after she was rescued.
Yeah, that's awful.
Super tragic. And the whole story of Lolita is so tragic. I actually never read it. But I, had in my mind, like, oh, yeah, like, young girl, guys, somehow they're together. I don't know if it's, like, implicit that they're together, but, like, it is. Like, I read the whole Wikipedia article with, like, the whole, plot and all of that. It was implicit. Like, they have sex.
Yeah.
And it's totally gross.
Yeah.
And awful. And what I found kind of interesting is, like, oh, it can be interpreted different ways. Like,
right.
Sometimes you sympathize with Humbert. Sometimes you're just like, this is just super tragic and awful and sad.
I think the Dominique Swain version of the film, it was super controversial, even more so than the book, even more so than like the Kubrick film that came out in the 60s, because Adrian Lyne wanted to make it more true, in quotes, to the book, but in doing so, made it so much more salacious than the book ever was.
Mm-hmm.
He really kind of ignored the unreliable narrator, Humbert, and kind of took it for granted that Lolita was a nymphette. Lolita did seduce him. Lolita was complicit in, like...
If you read it as she's like a 12-year-old, there's no way.
Yeah,
like, that's just not how this works.
Yeah. So now part of me kind of wants to see the movie just as a critical analysis. We've read so much about it now, but I kind of still don't want to see it.
The whole thing's on YouTube. I saw it many times. I was looking for the trailer with Dominique Swain, and like the whole thing's on there. We can watch it anytime.
You watched the screen test with Dominique Swain, though, right?
Yes.
This article references that, like in the first paragraph, kind of sums it up, and it's so creepy. It looks like a porno. Dominique Swain is obviously a small child playing the role of this worldly teenager. It's so disturbing, so unsettling.
She has braces.
Mm-hmm.
She's super nervous. And she's just kind of like wants to like say yes and okay and like make all of these old men in the room very happy. Jeremy Irons hits her in the face. It's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, Jeremy Irons is Humbert Humbert. Melanie Griffith plays her mother. Adrian Lyne directed it. What was his debut film, Jody?
Foxes.
Foxes, you say?
Remember Foxes?
From a few episodes ago?
The very Foxes where Felix Proper once had a role in. The Foxes starring Jodie Foster, Scott Baio, Laura Dern, and who else? There was somebody else. Cherie Curry.
Yes.
This blew my mind. I couldn't wait to tell you. I'm so glad you picked up on that too.
Oh, I was like exploding. But also he directed Flashdance.
Yep.
9.5 Weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And a favorite of mine, Fatal Attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Which this article made me really laugh because it was like, and that's how we got the term bunny boiler. And I was like, who has ever called anyone a bunny boiler? And that was my favorite part of the whole article.
Can we talk about Dominique Swain's movie career?
Yeah.
Because Dominique Swain is Rusty. Rusty
Yes.
is Dominique Swain.
It's wild. So Natalie Portman turned down this role of Lolita, and Kirsten Dunst beat Dominique Swain for the role of the child vampire in Interview with the Vampire. So it's kind of almost like, oh, okay, if she had been in that, she would have probably never been in Lolita because she would have been a big enough star to turn that down. Natalie Portman had been in The Professional, so she was a big enough star to be able to turn down Lolita and say, I don't want to do that. But Dominique Swain was still like young and hungry and like really wanted the role, and you could tell she felt like this is a big, important part of her career. Like that same year.
She had never acted before.
No, in that same year, she was in Face Off with John Travolta.
I haven't
John
seen
Travolta's daughter. You've never seen Face Off. It's insane. The whole premise of the movie is insane. John Travolta is a cop. Nicolas Cage is a criminal that has killed John Travolta's son. And so they decide the best thing to do is like switch their faces. But like it has...
Wait, so it's literally Face Off.
Literally. Except it's like this wild technology where there's like no incisions and anything, like teeth. You get the other person's teeth. You get the other person's mannerisms.
Okay.
None of it makes sense.
So it's not like Freaky Friday or like Big, where like they're
supposed to have each other's faces.
Face
like
off.
Face off. Yeah, but John Travolta ends up like Nicolas Cage gets his face. So then he's like real creepy to his daughter.
Oh.
Which is Dominique Swain.
Right.
So she just like in this year she gets to be like
she's totally typecast.
Yeah, this young girl that older men like fetishize. She was beautiful. But so young.
Yeah.
And she never really recovered. Like, she was known as Lolita from here on out. There was, like, a very scandalous Esquire photo shoot, which the photos are all online. And I'm like, oh, my God, I remember these. I remember seeing this and being like, wow, she's only a few years older than me. And look how pretty and sexy she is.
Well, the author of this article that we've been referencing thought the same thing. I thought it was really interesting how she injected her memories of reading that article, like, totally modeled herself after Dominique Swain and Lolita. You know, she did her hair in the braids. She spent years trying to find the perfect romper and like saddle shoes, because in her mind, that's how you have power. That's how you assert yourself, is to attract older men. And rather than realizing you're just prey to them.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that Dominique Swain's movie career after that like went from B movies to D movies to C movies. But in a lot of them, she played the same character, and she had her hair in the braids. As recently as this movie she was in a couple years ago, The Sixth Friend, is that what it was called?
Yeah, I think that's what it was called. Yeah, she's in like murder porn now.
But can I tell you my favorite movie that she's in? Nazis at the Center of the Earth. Have you seen it?
No.
Can I read you the synopsis?
Yes.
A group of scientists are captured by the famous Nazi war criminal Dr. Mengele and taken to his lair, where he has been using twisted experiments to keep his decaying followers alive in the center of the earth.
Yeah, so that's where her career is at.
Oh, Dominique. Can you imagine, though? Like you said, if somehow she had faced off with Kirsten Dunst or Natalie Portman, things could have ended up so differently.
And what happened with Adrian Lyne's Lolita?
That just, I wasn't willing to do that. It wasn't the right thing for me to do at that time. I wasn't willing to put myself in like a sexual role, when I was 13, 14, and still right now. I mean, I don't think I'd be able to do it now. I'm just not, there was nudity and sex involved, and I think there's enough exploitation out there that it's not necessary to do more of that.
Early. Your hair is a different color.
It is. It's red.
It's red. I just like saying henna. I don't know what henna means, but I heard it. My sister did it growing up. What is henna?
I think that henna is a shade of red.
You're damn right it is. Yeah, it is. We know you best from Lolita. How'd you get that part?
Oh, actually, they were casting in L.A. I was like trying out for Barbie doll commercials when I was 12 years old, and it wasn't working out. I have a little bit too much enthusiasm even for commercials.
You're launching yourself at people at the auditions?
It doesn't go over very well.
Okay.
They don't think that they have to catch you. So.
Yeah.
So they were casting in New York, and I had read the book of Lolita, and I was 14 years old. It was 2 years later, and I just decided that my fledgling acting career was over. But I decided to submit myself to the casting director anyway. So I read myself onto a tape.
I know your parents were supportive of this, or what?
Oh, absolutely. My parents want me to do whatever I want to do, but they didn't actually know how it was received. So I picked a scene from the book, and I read it onto a tape, and I sent it to New York, and they called me back, and both my parents were actually out of town when I got the phone call, and they were like, we might want you to come to New York tomorrow. We're going to fax you 40 pages of the script. And I was just like, okay. So I practiced with some of my friends. It was like the first week of summer.
Call the girls over and say, we're going to practice some scenes. I'm flying to New York, right?
They actually found me at my friend's house. So I have no idea how they dug me up.
That's good. Maybe your agent or somebody like that.
I didn't have an agent at the time, actually.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So,
what do I know?
So they said that they did want me to come to New York, and they picked me up, and they took me to the airport.
Your parents are out of town, and you're flying to New York with the parents out of town?
Yes.
That's a naughty girl.
Well, it came as kind of a surprise to my parents when Adrian Lyne calls them up out of nowhere, and neither of my parents had actually read the book.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, how would you feel about her doing this? And my mom was just like, wait, you have my daughter? She's where?
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't in on the phone call, but she just said that, she was in Hawaii. It was a different time zone.
Sure.
And she's like, well, what, are you serious? What's going on? So then they sent me back to the airport in a stretch limo.
Oh,
and it was the first that I'd ever written.
That's gotta be fun for a 15-year-old, 14-year-old girl, right?
Yeah.
So what's the opposite of Lolita?
Mother Teresa?
No, marathon bars.
Oh.
Good answer, though. That makes way more sense. That was my attempt at a segue.
Can you please get to the bottom of these marathon bars?
I know. It's been bothering me ever since.
I had a lot of tiny Snickers today and thought about it.
Oh, really? Leftover from Halloween?
Yeah. In my drawer in my office.
So I found out the truth behind the marathon Snickers curly whirly controversy. Turns out everybody was right. We were all right.
What?
In the UK, they had marathon bars, which were what we call Snickers bars. Same packaging, same logo, everything. It just said marathon, not Snickers.
Okay.
And they were very popular over in England until 1990. So that's how I remember them from being a kid. Their slogan is "Comes up peanuts, slice after slice," and all the commercials show the Snickers bar or the marathon bar being like chopped up into small slices.
No, but I do feel like there's something from my childhood that tells me you should eat a Snickers with a fork and a knife.
Really?
Like there's some kind of weird visual of like I've definitely seen a Snickers eaten chopped up like that, like it was a thing.
Is it a commercial and they have a Snickers bar and there's like a silver platter and it's like lifted up?
It might be.
Are we making that up?
I don't know. I mean, this is the Mandela effect. Like, who knows?
Right. I trust our memories because
Okay.
we were right about this. I'm sure we're right about that too. So
What about the curly whirly?
Okay, I'm getting there. Eventually, they decided it was they, meaning the Mars Corporation. They decided it was too confusing to have different names across the pond, so they decided to fuse everyone into Snickers, right? Boom. But then there was a marathon bar in the U.S. in the 70s. This was very short-lived. It had a very iconic orange and yellow wrapper, the one that you saw. And it's like a foot long, and the wrapper even had like a ruler on it because the whole thing is like it's so long, it's like a marathon to eat it, you know?
Like a Charleston chew.
Ooh, I don't know those.
They're like long.
Really?
Long candies.
They sound like old-fashioned candies.
Charleston chew.
Ugh, sounds gross.
Ugh.
Their slogan was "Lasts a good long time." There was like always a cowboy in the commercials.
Isn't it funny how like candy bars are so bad now?
They're not good.
No, like nobody's like, oh, I'm just gonna have a candy bar.
Right. I do sometimes crave Mars bars.
Yeah, like I'll have like a little bar.
But
and when I was pregnant, I ate a lot of Butterfingers.
Ooh, yeah.
But they're not good for you. Like it's a thing you have to do alone now. It's not something you do with pride. Like
it's not like the pick me up. Like
No.
you know, like I'm hungry in between lunch and dinner.
you know what? I'll have a candy bar. It's like, no, I'll eat a candy bar in my car by myself.
Well, you know, now we have like Cliff Bars, which are basically just as bad, just
That's what I
as
always
sugar
say,
loaded.
Like, Kind Bars, like, sponsor us. But
Yeah.
I am always like, this is just like our new candy bars.
Right.
Like dark chocolate.
I'm having flashbacks when I was in middle school, we had like carpool rotations. Whenever the other parents would do carpool duty, every Friday they'd take us to like 7-Eleven and then buy each kid like a candy bar, whatever.
And a slushie and like
all the treats. And
things
this
you do
blew
not
my
give
mind.
children now.
No, but my mom never did. My mom was like, fuck these kids. I'm not spending my money on treats for these brats. And one of the kids in my carpool, Robert, complained to his mom. And the moms had to have a chat about like being
bars?
fair.
Oh my God.
Anyway, so back to Marathon Bar. That was very short-lived. That was discontinued in 1981. So here's the question, though. Which one did Rusty have? Because this book was written in 1981. I feel like it's more likely that she maybe had a slightly out-of-date American Orange Marathon Bar.
She is in America.
Yeah.
And if they were only ever called that in the UK.
Unless she went to like an imports candy bar.
No, then it had to be a Curly Whirly.
Yeah. And speaking of Curly Whirlies, the Cadbury Corporation over across the pond started making Curly Whirlies, and people would I was going to say email. No, they would mail them. They would have like pen pals overseas to like mail the candy bars. Were they big?
Are they big like the marathon bars that were in the U.S.? Or are they just the similar
I think they're about
texture?
the same size.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't had a
Interesting.
Curly Whirly in a long time, but I remember them being pretty long.
Cool. This is good information.
Uh-huh.
I am Quick Claude. I do everything fast.
Marathon John, you can't eat a marathon candy bar fast, Quick Claude. It lasts a good long time.
I show you. Milk chocolate, delicious caramel, and chewy.
Told you, nobody eats a marathon bar quick, Claude.
Marathon lasts a good long time.
Peanuts and caramel. Marathon. Peanuts and nougat. Marathon. Peanuts and chocolate. Comes up peanuts. Slice up the slice. Marathon. Roasted peanuts. Extra peanut taste. Comes up peanuts. Slice after slice. Marathon.
Snickers! bars, how you say, Snickers bar.
Bar, cafe. There's one down the road. Now, you go out here, you take a right and...
In the spirit of international understanding, Marathon has changed its name to Snickers. It's still packed with peanuts and still covered with the smoothest milk chocolate. But now, for Marathon, say Snickers.
Excusez-moi, have you got the Snickers?
No, love. Just the way I walk.
Snickers. All that's changed is the name.
Et vous pouvez vous taire, hein?
Okay, and now we're going to round it out with some reviews we found on Goodreads.
We want to hear what some other people, besides Bloomheads, thought about this Norma Klein book.
Totally. I was actually specifically looking for 1-star reviews just because I thought it would be kind of funny. And there were hardly any.
Yeah, it's too good for that.
Yeah, mostly very, very positive.
A lot of good long reviews. People that have really spent some time with it. But I wanted to read this snippet by a guy named Kevin. So he goes through a lot of things, but then he gets to finally the likability thing, something we were just touching on ourselves. He says, the narrator is a 14-year-old girl who understands some things very well and some things not at all. And the author does a very good job of presenting the story from her POV while also hinting at things that are really happening, unseen or unnoticed by Rusty. The Lolita audition scene was particularly harrowing, not just for what Rusty experiences, but from the things she's not certain she's experiencing. Rusty is growing older and learning to eventually figure her shit out, and the author shaped her in a way that feels very true to me. She's not the ultra-smart and sassy teenager who was born with it all figured out, the cool adult inside the teen body who is often the female lead in YA, allowing us to feel an emotional connection by being the stand-in for how we wish we had been at that age. Rusty doesn't need you to like her. She's just doing her best. And I suspect her unwillingness to be other than how she is might be part of what people react negatively to in this book. So interesting. I don't know why I'm just recalling this now.
Yeah.
But at the airport in Phoenix over the holiday, this lady ran up to me and she said, I was wearing my Judy MFM Blume shirt. She said, "Oh, amazing shirt." She was like, I'm probably the only one around here that knows how cool that is.
That's awesome.
And then she sat in front of me on the plane, this lady. I was like in too much of a daze of like flying with a child.
Yeah.
At a really particular hard age to like even be able to respond to her in a coherent way. But she sits in front of me, Poe's like crying and like kind of being an annoying kid on a plane. And she turns around, super intense, and it's just like, don't let anybody tell you you're not doing your best. You're doing your best. Let him scream. You're doing the best you can. And I was just like, this woman is my hero.
I'm telling you, Bloomheads are the best.
But just thinking about Rusty doing her best. Just brought me back to that woman telling me I was doing my best.
I wish you would have taken a photo with her.
She was so intense, and I was just like, oh.
She was like your, not like your fairy godmother, but like your fairy cheerleader, you know?
Yeah,
get it.
Awesome. I loved her. She was so intense.
Also, shout out to Ryan O'Malley, who made us these amazing Judy MFN Blume shirts.
Such a cool shirt.
We got to post some photos of those.
Yes, we do.
Should we move on to Dichotomy Girl's review?
Hey, Dichotomy Girl.
She wrote a pretty long, thoughtful review as well, but we really liked her last paragraph. She says, lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the amusement/irritation I got from a particular turn of phrase the author used. The main character was constantly saying things similar to, did you come over just so you could fuck with me? Or mention how her boyfriend used to fuck with other girls. Perhaps in the early 80s, with following the F word simply meant that it was an activity you shared. However, to my modern brain, her boyfriend spent a lot of time being mean to and playing jokes on her and other girls. And then she goes, according to dictionary.com, the phrase fuck with, meaning to mess around with, dates from 1940 plus. So maybe this was just the author's bad. But seriously, it got annoying.
But then again, like, if you think about mess around with...
Exactly.
Like, we do say that. Like, they were messing around with each other.
Right.
And that's implied that they were, like, hooking up. which is a term that I've never quite understood. Because I'm never sure if hooking up is like, did you kiss or did you fuck? Like, I always thought it was fucking, but then it's like, no, like, maybe we just kissed one time.
It's so vague. I know. When I was living in London, we used to say kip.
Excuse me?
Kip. Did you kip him? Were you kipping? And
what was that?
It was the same. It was like it could either mean fuck or hook up. And I always used it to mean hook up, but I think some people like
what
lean
is
to
hook
the
up
other
to
way.
You? It's not fuck.
No, hook up is like make out.
Okay.
To me.
Uh-huh.
Right?
I don't know, because I feel like you could be like, oh, we hooked up. Maybe you fucked one time.
I think you're right, but I think that's purposely being coy. You know?
To leave it open.
I don't know. Kip was definitely around the same thing. And I got myself into trouble by like talking about like some kid I kipped, and apparently it got around that we fucked with.
Right. Like this is all very confusing.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a huge part of why I didn't really get busy.
Yeah.
When I was young, I was like, I don't like the ambiguity of it all.
And it's just the rumors and the like judgment. I was the same. I tried to steer clear of all of that. I didn't want to be part of it. But I would love it if you could read Louise's response to this, because
yes,
I thought her insight was very interesting.
So Louise, in the comments of this review, says, I love that you brought up that odd prepositional tick. I distantly recall being taken aback by it then, and we live near the city. To fuck with someone definitely meant messing with or tricking her, not having sex with her. Theoretically, I suppose you could fuck with somebody by fucking her, depending on your subsequent words and actions. At the time, I just thought it was a slip the author made because she hadn't actually known a teenager who would speak so boldly and got it wrong. Now in middle age, I wonder if she was trying to show that the protagonist was more naive than she acted and was misusing the word because she didn't know any better. Interesting.
That is very interesting.
Wow. I guess we'll never know.
Maybe Judy knows.
Or maybe Jennifer knows.
Oh, yeah. Jennifer, we got to get you on here.
Oh, we got to do some investigating.
We wouldn't be complete without reading a low-star review. Like I said, we couldn't find any 1-star reviews. I found a 2-star review.
Come at us.
This is just funny. This is from Shelley. I love Norma Klein, books written both before and after this one, but oh my god, every character was so stupid. I mostly aligned with Lionel. I agree. But even he was ridiculous. Also agree.
Yeah.
Tatiana, newly turned 14, stars in a movie that includes a nude scene, and she is flawless and adored by critics and America alike without any acting experience ever. Also, her dad is the only one disturbed by her sex life with her 16-year-old boyfriend, but also thinks she'd be a wonderful Lolita. So basically teen fantasy porn. Maybe I would have liked this when I was 14. Ugh, I need to go read Love is One of the Choices or something to remember why I like her so much. And I only wanted to read this one because we have been told by many Bloomheads that Love is One of the Choices is a Norma book we got to get into.
A little Norma spinoff.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of future books, do we want to reveal what we're reading next?
Let's do it.
Should we just get everybody
prepared to go on another Judy journey with us?
Uh-huh. Do we want to say it at the same time?
Okay.
Otherwise known as Sheila the Great.
I'm so pumped.
Yeah, we thought, what better way to get back to Judy than to just follow the fudge train. So this is the book that came right after Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing in the series.
Mm-hmm. All aboard the fudge train. Toot toot.
All aboard the fudge train, and follow us on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
The Instagram train is full steam ahead.
Yep, we're not going to get kicked off there again.
Learned our lesson.
Thanks, Shadow Band.
Write us a letter. We have been loving your letters, and we want more, more, more.
They give me so much joy.
Mm-hmm. bloomsaloon@gmail.com. And we've gotten some really great iTunes reviews, some Apple Podcast reviews. So keep them coming. 5 stars only. Wait, is it 4 stars?
5 stars.
5 stars.
Only. If you're going to leave us lower, don't do it.
If you have something negative to say, just email us privately. We'll handle it privately.
Talk amongst ourselves.
Yeah. And we will see you next week with fucking Sheila the Great.
Fucking Sheila!
Bye.
Bye.